Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're exploring something, well, fundamental, isn't it? Happiness.
Absolutely, and how we find it. Or maybe how we lose touch with it.
Exactly. We're looking at this through the lens of Ramana Maharshi's teachings, specifically drawing insights from a YouTube video by Alan Yost.
Yeah, the video, Asha, Happiness and Hobbies, it links these, deep spiritual ideas to everyday life.
Right. So Mahar uses Maharshi to ask, why does happiness often feel so elusive? And crucially, how might our hobbies play a role in?
Well, finding it again.
It makes you think, if happiness is supposed to be natural, why isn't it just there all the time?
That's the big question. So our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack Maharshi's view on happiness, this sort of innate mechanism Ayurveda talks about.
Can figure out why that mechanism seems jammed for so many of us.
Precisely. And then look at the practical side, how hobbies could potentially help unjam it, maybe get us back to that feeling of joy.
Sounds like a plan. Where do we start? With Maharshi's core idea. Let's do that. Kalam really emphasizes Maharshi's point that humans are inherently born for happiness, just as birds are born to fly.
It's not just a nice saying either. He suggests it's about how our minds are actually wired.
Okay, so how does that wiring work? What's this mechanism of happiness?
Well, as Krall lays it out, based on Maharshi, the mind naturally wants things. It engages with the world, pursues desires.
The key being things it genuinely wants.
Exactly, intrinsic desire. Then, after fulfilling that desire, or even just engaging with it, the mind naturally settles back. It returns to its source, kind of rests.
Okay.
And it's in that moment of return, that quiet space after the engagement, that the feeling of happiness naturally bubbles up.
So it's a cycle. Desire, engagement, fulfillment, rest, happiness.
Something like that, yeah. The wanting, the doing, and then that peaceful settling back. That's the natural flow.
Okay, but here's the obvious snag, isn't it?
Yeah.
If that's the default setting, why is consistent happiness so rare? Why aren't we all just happy?
That's the puzzle. And it leads directly to Maharshi's main practice, the one he recommended for cutting through this problem.
Which is the Who Am I meditation, Atmavichara.
Exactly, Atmavichara. It's presented as the direct path to realizing this inherent happiness by understanding your true nature.
How does it work in practice? What are you actually doing when you do that?
Essentially, you're investigating the sense of I. You start peeling back layers, asking, am I this body? No. Am I these thoughts? No. Am I my job, my roles?
So you negate everything you identify with.
Right. You systematically dismantle those identifications. Body, mind, emotions, social labels like, engineer, mother, artist, all of it.
To get to what exactly?
To isolate that fundamental feeling of just being, the pure sense of I am, which Maharshi called aham vritti. It's the basic self-awareness before all the labels and thoughts get piled on.
And the idea is that core awareness is happiness, or contains it.
It's seen as the seat of that inherent peace and happiness. When the mind quiets down from identifying with everything else, that natural state shines through.
Sounds incredibly direct, powerful even. But, like Seal points out, despite Maharshi having an ashram, followers, clear teachings, it doesn't seem to translate into widespread, constant happiness for most people who try it.
Yeah, there's a definite gap between the theory and the lived reality for many. Why is it so hard?
What does Sura suggest? Does he offer reasons?
He touches on a couple of things. One is Maharshi's own background. Remember how Maharshi supposedly attained enlightenment?
Wasn't it triggered by an intense fear of death when he was young?
Exactly. A profound, overwhelming confrontation with mortality. It wasn't just casual curiosity. It was this burning question. Who is dying? Am I dying? What happens then?
So a really powerful catalyst that forced him into that deep self-inquiry.
Right. And the point is, most of us, well, we don't have that kind of intense, life-altering existential crisis pushing us.
Life just sort of happens. The everyday takes over.
Pretty much. We don't typically get that kind of shock to the system. But then Mishi brings up something else, something maybe more universally relatable.
Okay.
The whole effect of socialization. How we're trained, essentially, from childhood onwards.
This feels important. Train how?
Trained to do things we don't necessarily want to do. Think about it, school, chores, societal expectations, jobs. There's so much emphasis on obligation, on doing what you should do.
Right. Rather than what you feel genuinely drawn to.
Exactly. And Shu argues that over time, this conditioning actually makes us lose the ability to even know what we genuinely want.
It's quite a statement, but it resonates.
He mentions life coaches, right? How they often ask clients, okay, but what do you really want? And people just freeze. They genuinely don't know.
Yeah. It's surprisingly hard to answer sometimes. What do I want beyond, paying the bills or getting through the week?
It's like Maharshi offers this advanced university level problem, find the ultimate self.
Okay.
But many of us haven't even mastered the basic school level homework of figuring out our own simple desires. What brings us joy day to day?
That's a great analogy. We're skipping steps.
Kind of. Sayin even mentions a Ukrainian saying, "Ugri, wishes." It basically means even if you want something else, you have to do this other thing. Obligation trumps desire.
Wow. That really sums up a lot of adult life, doesn't it?
It can, yeah. And so if you've lost touch with your own genuine wanting, how effective is it going to be to sit down and try to inquire into the nature of the self? Like that Omri meditation he mentioned briefly.
Right, you couldn't quite recall the name.
Yeah. But
Oh.
the point is, if the foundation knowing your own desires is shaky, trying to build this complex meditative practice on top might just not work for many people.
You're trying to navigate your inner world without even knowing your own compass correction.
Exactly. And this is where Yulisha brings in hobbies as a practical solution, or at least a starting point.
Okay, so hobbies aren't just distractions. They're therapeutic. A pathway back.
That's the suggestion. It's a way to gradually reclaim that feeling of happiness by reconnecting with genuine wanting. He reminds us to look at children.
They seem naturally happy, most of the time. Engaged.
Right. They just do things because they feel like it. They haven't had that instinct trained out of them yet. So we know this state is possible. We've all been there. We have a reference point, even if it's buried.
So a hobby, in this context, isn't just anything you do in your spare time. What's the specific definition here?
It's defined as a small activity, something in your adult life that you genuinely, truly want to do. Not for money, not for status, not because you feel you should.
Just for the pure enjoyment of it.
Precisely. And ideally, something you can do regularly, maybe even daily. The examples given were things like collecting stamps.
Okay, classic one.
Or salsa dancing, running, yoga, drawing. Could be anything, really. Gardening, playing music, model building. As long as the core motivation is your desire to do it.
So it's about finding those little sparks of intrinsic motivation again.
Exactly. The purpose is to slowly, gently restore the mind's natural ability to want things and find satisfaction in pursuing them. It's like flexing a muscle that's gotten weak.
Retraining the mind to engage with the world and with yourself based on genuine interest rather than just obligation.
Re-engaging that tool, the mind, with what it actually finds meaningful or enjoyable on its own terms.
And this loops back to Maharshi's mechanism then. By doing what you want, the mind eventually settles back into that happy state.
That's the connection Twokos draws. By cultivating these small acts of genuine desire, you're essentially practicing that natural cycle of wanting, doing, and resting, allowing happiness to arise more often.
So the big takeaway is that happiness isn't some far-off goal we need complex techniques to reach.
Not necessarily. According to this view, it's an inherent quality. It's already within you. The work isn't about getting happiness, but about removing the stuff that's obscuring it.
Like the disconnect from our own desires caused by, life and society.
Exactly. It's about rediscovering what's already there, not waiting for some perfect future condition. Even hints this connects to our broader human potential, but maybe that's for another time.
Okay, so let's try and summarize the key points for everyone listening. We started with Maharshi's idea, Vyasya. Happiness is our baseline.
Right, our natural state, like birds flying.
But socialization often teaches us to ignore our own desires, prioritizing obligations instead.
Which makes us lose touch with what we actually want, making that natural happiness mechanism harder to access.
And while deep self-inquiry like, who am I, is the direct path Maharshi taught.
It can be really challenging if you're already disconnected from that basic sense of personal wanting. It's like trying university maths before mastering arithmetic.
So the practical, accessible first step, suggests, is hobbies.
Yeah, simple activities you genuinely want to do. They help rebuild that connection to intrinsic motivation.
And by doing that, you re-engage the mind's natural cycle, allowing those moments of inherent happiness to surface more often.
It's a really interesting way to bridge profound philosophy with, everyday actions. Props to Amelia for highlighting that link.
Definitely. It makes these big ideas feel much more doable, tangible. So maybe the final thought for everyone listening is this. What actually brings you joy? Not obligations, not expectations, but genuine, simple enjoyment.
Even tiny things. What activities make you feel engaged just for their own sake?
And could consciously making a bit more space for those things, those school-level desires maybe, be a real practical step towards feeling, well, happier, regardless of the big spiritual quests.
What have you forgotten that you used to love doing? Worth pondering, isn't it?
Definitely something to think about. Until our next deep dive.